All right, appreciate everybody coming out here today. Please bear with me. It's my first time giving this presentation. It's been several years, so suffer through it with me. Don't hesitate with any questions. A little background on me. I got a degree in agriculture from The Ohio State University. Worked on their athletic fields as a student. Interned for the Cincinnati Bengals. Then went back, finished up, and moved out to Los Angeles for my first job, Loyola Marymount University, private Catholic Jesuit school. Worked on their fields for about 2 years, and then did minor league ball for the Padres, single A. I went work for the Houston Texans, the Miami Dolphins, and then a construction company out of Tampa, JSM Services. I oversaw all their accounts, fertilization, pest control, and culture work, stuff like that. And I knew I wanted to get into sales and just being able to help as many people as I could. So I've been with SiteOne about 7 months, and I'm gonna say something you probably normally don't hear about most companies. It's better place to work for than I imagined. So I'm very, very happy here. I was told to do about 1 minute to 2 minutes per slide because I got 40, 45 minutes. I actually have 70 slides, so I'm going to go through some of these kind of quick. If you have any questions, just stop and ask. So obviously we do a lot more than just athletic fields. We're asked to do a little bit of everything. Playgrounds, trash pickup. When I was a student at Ohio State, worked on their athletic grounds fields. I mean, we cleaned bathrooms, we pulled tarps, we were a little bit of everything. We were operations. Today we're going to discuss, what should you be looking for on your athletic fields. Signs that they aren't safe, signs that they aren't playable, and trying things you can be doing to try and make them more safe and more playable. So things you should be looking for. Are there curbs? Are there holes, valve boxes, fence posts, gates? You want to be aware of these things and you want to have a plan to fix them. The next slide here, we have, fence toppers or wall padding. Obviously a brick wall behind home plate is not very safe. Neither are holes and, bad edging and stuff like that. So how can you fix a valve cover? Sometimes simple answer is one, make sure it's level. And another answer might be throwing a piece of synthetic turf on top of it. So if a ball hits it, it doesn't take a crazy bounce. It absorbs some of the shock. The biggest issue we run into with playability here is obviously it rains a lot in Florida. And we'll talk about different clays on baseball fields, softball fields, and how to try and manage those. So when I talk about athletic fields, the three topics I try and speak about are safety, playability, and aesthetics. Everybody shows up to the field and they say, oh, the field looks great, it's green, but that doesn't mean it's safe. Sometimes fields are brown, but it could be manicured and perfect and a lot safer than that field that, is green. So I try to prioritize it in that way. Is that field safe? And we got to start there. Is it playable? So what I like to do with that is have a plan. Know when you're going to be able to mow it, when you should be irrigating it, and when can you schedule guys? I realize all you guys are high schools, and there's a lot of labor shortages right now. So one of those things could be subbing it out. Some of it could be robotics, which is kind of what a lot of places are going towards. There's robotic mowing, there's robotic painting. I used to work with Broward County Schools a little bit when I worked for the Miami Dolphins, and we hosted a field day there. And they were saying they have so many schools in their district that not all their football fields got painted every single week. So they had kind of pick and choose. Okay, your field got painted last, which sounds crazy to me. But that's, some of you guys have school districts that large that's how it is. So with a robotic painter, you can send out one guy, paint the entire field in 20 to 40 minutes, depending on what kind of field it is. And then you free up your 3 or 4 other guys, and they can be doing other jobs. If you have 3 or 4 other guys, some school districts only have one guy, and that's it. So the best way to have a safe athletic field is to try and grow a healthy one. It's the better standard grass you have, the better type of rooting, the more weeds you're going to keep out, and the more it's going to absorb water and nutrients and carbon can't say that word. Yeah, it's going to clean the air. So how do you determine what kind of soil you have? Well, we're in Florida, so we're pretty sandy. We typically drain pretty well, but the best thing to do is take a soil test. We recommend doing those at least once a year, more on sand-based fields because they leach more. Those nutrients run out, especially with our big, heavy rains. And things you should be looking at with those soil tests are, the main things I look at is pH of the soil, because if it's low, if it's high, then it's not going to grow. And you want a neutral pH. The other thing I like to look at is salinity. If you have very high salts, it probably means you have poor water. So you need to try and adjust that with calcium products such as gypsum. And the best way to take a soil test is with a soil probe. And we usually put those into a bucket. You can do those yourselves, or if you have a sales guy or a groundskeeper. Obviously, we do them through SiteOne, but there's other companies that do it as well. You want to pull 20 to 30 plugs per field, and then you can either let them dry, or you can take them to the lab, and then they're going to let them dry, and then they're going to do their tests. And this next slide is a sample of what the results look like. So they're pretty easy to read. If you're high in a nutrient, it's going to say high. If you're low, it's going to say low, and it gives recommendations down at the bottom. We recommend at least once a year, unless you think you're having an issue. You see something where you're not growing, then we would recommend it more often to see if that pH is out of whack or if your salts are high. So it varies. If the field's growing good, I typically don't like the soil test more than once a year, because then you just play around with it too much. You're spending a lot more money, essentially. So if it's growing and you're not having any issues, yeah. So why spend that extra money? So unless you're a sales guy, then I want you to, then yeah. But so on warm season sports fields, it's best to know your budget, obviously, and what kind of grass can you maintain. I've dealt with very low-end fields that had Bahia grass on them, and there's high-end fields that had Bermuda grass on them. And then there's ones where, when I was in the pros, we mowed our Bermuda grass less than an inch in height. And then, and we'd mow those 2-3 times a week, sometimes every day, which I thought was overkill. But depending on your maintenance practices and what you want, a lot of high schools, you're lucky to get it mowed once or twice a week at 1.5 to 2 inches. So it depends on your maintenance practices and your staffing. Drainage. So there's surface and subsurface. Obviously, we would all love to have subsurface drainage. It's expensive. But if you can design your field to have a proper root zone, proper drainage, then you're going to have less rainouts and you're going to be able to use your athletic fields a lot more. So it comes into planning and budgeting. But I would also say it's a safety thing because nobody wants a big sewer grate in the middle of your athletic field. If you have wet fields or very compacted fields, the best way to alleviate that and have better quality fields is to aerate. The more culture work you can do to your fields, whether it's aerifying, top dressing, verticutting, the better, more airflow, the less disease you're going to have because you have more airflow. The more you can aerify, the better your drainage is going to be, the better oxygen you're going to have, so the better roots you're going to have. So at minimum once a year, ideal is 4 times a year for aerification. Again, timing, budgeting, what can you do, what can you afford? But aerification, in my opinion, is the key to safe and playable athletic fields and getting more out of them. When you mow, there's the 1/3 rule. You should never take off more than 1/3 of that leaf blade, and you should keep your blades sharp. And this is kind of a weird analogy, but if you cut your finger, do you want to cut your finger with a sharp knife or a dull knife? If you do it with a sharp knife, you're not even going to feel it. So it's the same thing with a plant. If you're cutting grass with dull blades, then you're going to open it up to disease because it's going to tear the grass rather than cut it. So here are some different types of mowers. Again, the rotary, the tractor is the most common. The reel mower is, it's more expensive, but it's one of the best cuts. And then, like I said, the future and where a lot of people are going are robotics because they don't need several people mowing, and they can just set it up and let it go, and it does all the work. You got to change the blades on it about once a month, depending how much you use it. And it's definitely a learning curve. It takes about a day to set up a mower, but that Husqvarna Sierra, that can do 6 acres a day or 18 acres in 3 days. My last job, we actually demoed one for Hillsborough County Parks, and it mowed an entire complex. 4 athletic fields. It mowed them like 2 fields a day or something, and then next day we would do the other 2. And we just had to cut make little doggy doors in the fences, or they left the gate open for the demo. And that one mower would go to each and every field. And it kind of blew my mind that it did it. So if I didn't see it with my own eyes, I probably wouldn't have believed it, honestly. So the only time we had errors with it is somebody opened a valve box and then didn't put it on, so then it went into the valve box. Somebody closed the gate, so it got stuck inside the field. A lot of the issues were human error and not something because of the mower went wrong. So it takes some time to set up, but once you do, they're pretty awesome. I couldn't believe how low and how tight the grass got, honestly. So I do think robotics are the future for mowing. So fertilizing, if you're doing general landscape, it's recommended you do about 4 pounds of nitrogen per year. In Florida, we do have a blackout period where June through September, you cannot throw nitrogen or phosphorus. So you got to kind of plan strategically with soil temperatures. In Florida, you want to get a pre-emergent out before they reach 55 degrees, 60 degrees. That's when crabgrass and goosegrass starts to germinate. So we try and monitor that. On an athletic field, you should be fertilizing, depending on its usage. Baseball and softball fields, you can usually get away with about 6 pounds of nitrogen per year. For higher use, like football and soccer fields and real big multi-use fields, you probably want to be closer to 10 pounds per year. Of course, you want to keep accurate records of how much you threw and your settings and the weather, and then you can refer back. See what you did last year, how much you need to order. You can even write pricing on there. So there's a lot of information, but record keeping is key to knowing what's working for you and what's not working for you. Irrigation, you want to try and have head-to-head coverage if possible. I understand a lot of time wells go down and you have no irrigation. And other times it's just very low pressure because you're running off city pressure. In a perfect world, you want to try and have every head throw to the next head. You want to have those properly graded so they're not a tripping hazard. So again, we're going back to safety. And those should be ideally set about a ½ inch below the grade. And when I was at Miami Dolphins, we would actually once, sometimes twice a year, we would dig up every single head, clean the filter at the bottom, and then reset that head because we had dirty water we pulled from a canal, so we know those filters got dirty, and sometimes that would cause the poor pressure. But then they're also on swing joints, so we could lower them up and down because as we top dress and build organic matter, the heads would be too low because we build the field up every time we top dress. So a good way to know how much water you're putting out is a catch can test. So people will go out there with like a soup can or something, and then they'll turn on by each zone or each head, and then they'll turn on their irrigation and say, okay, I ran my heads for 30 minutes a zone, and that allowed me to put out ½ inch of water. Or you do like a mini rain gauge. So you're essentially doing an irrigation audit. But how do you know how long to run your irrigation heads for if you don't know how much you're putting out? So a lot of people like to set it and forget it, 3 times a week. And they're asking me, why are my fields too wet? Why are they not playable? Why do we have weeds? Why do we have dollar weed? Why do we have sedges and kalingas? A lot of that stuff is caused from overwatering. Painting athletic fields, you obviously want to use a paint that is designed for grass. That way it doesn't kill the grass. The more you can rotate wear on your fields, the less you're going to have to resod and have them shut down and try to regrow them. So, again, this is a completely unrealistic example for you guys. When I was at the Miami Dolphins, we would run the fields north and south, and then if they went away to train with another team, we would actually green out all the lines, turn the fields east and west, and take out the goalposts. We had separate holes in there. So that's pretty unrealistic. When I was at Loyola Marymount University, the men's and women's soccer team practiced on the game field, and we had about 2 to 3 feet where we could shift it north and south, and we had about 5 yards where we could shift it east and west. So that's probably a little bit more, what you guys could do. So when they started their training camp, we would have it as far away from the stands as possible and as far north or south, whichever way made sense. And then come when the game started, their season started, we would try and move that field as close to the bleachers. That way it was, closer to the fans. So the more you can rotate wear, the better athletic fields you're going to be. A lot of times you get these coaches, they like to stand on the 20-yard line and not move and run all their drills and, right between the hashes. If you can get them to, drive down the field like they want to do during the game, hey, run this drill starting at the 20 and then it ends at the 25, then you run the next one at 25. So if you can communicate with your coaches and have a good relationship there, that's the key to good ball fields. The rest of this presentation is mostly on managing clay, dirt, whatever you want to call it, baseball fields, softball fields. So I feel like this is where I get the most questions. People laugh at this, and I get it, but we see this all the time in Florida. We get a lot of rain, and the best way to manage a good infield is managing your water. That sounds crazy, but if you look back at this field, they purposely try and flood their field like this. And then that's why when you go to a baseball game and the groundskeeper comes out, they drag it, and he just waters real quick. He just like gives it like a little mist over, but you still see that moisture all game. That's because he spent several days getting that skin near capacity. And the more water you have in there, the more you can compact it. Let me try and find another slide. I think it's the more water you have in there, the more you can get that stuff to compact. And this kind of sounds crazy, but the more compact that it is, the more water it will take. If you go out there, you till up and laser grade your field, and then you don't roll it and you don't compact it, you're going to go out there and you're going to step and you're going to slip and you're going to slide. The key is moisture and compaction with clays. Let me go back. So this is a sign of not enough clay in your mix, which is usually the case with these Florida ball fields. Everybody kind of has that orangish colored clay. It's about an 80-20, 70-30 sand to clay mix. And this is what a lot of ball fields look like that I've came across. This is too much clay, or it could just be not enough moisture. Maybe somebody hasn't watered or done any maintenance on this field, and they're completely dry. So there's, the obvious answer is, well, let's water it, and let's drag it, and then let's see what it looks like. Another option is, rather than use that 70-30 or 80-20, whatever that clay, that orange clay is that we all have, a lot of people, like, well, maybe if I had conditioner. Well, conditioner holds water. So a lot of people like to top dress with conditioner, and then they say, well, I watered it and it looks good. Well, yes, but you're also not getting your cleats into the dirt, and that's what you want to do. You want to clean key in, key out. And the example people give to this, and you'll see Major League groundkeepers do this all the time, they'll pull a set of keys out of their pocket, stick it into the dirt, and if it goes in and comes out clean, then you have a good playable field. So a lot of people compare that to baking a cake. I'm not a baker, but I've been told if you do like a knife test, it goes in, comes out, then it's ready. So it's the same thing with an infield. Like I said, conditioners make you use water more efficiently. The most common one is Turface Athletics MVP. A lot of people are starting to switch. I'm getting ahead of myself. A lot of people, when they see puddles out there, they want to go out there with a product called Quick Dry. In my entire career, when I was learning as a student or professionally, I've always been told don't use Quick Dry because it ruins the soil. It will, if you put rocks in a jar, is it filled? People say yes. Most people do. But then you can fill it with sand. And then, okay, well, that jar wasn't filled because I just added more material to that jar. So it's kind of the same. You have different size particles in your soil. If you add Quick Dry, you can kind of see how fine it is in that picture. So it chokes out those bigger particles, and then you can't dry. You can't drain. So if you do use a product called Quick Dry, because you have big puddles out there, what you want to do is rake it into the puddle, but then you want to take it up with a shovel and you want to throw it in the trash. Sounds crazy, but it's going to absorb that water, and then if you scoop it up, it's not going to get down into your soil. So what I would do, I just use the calcined clays. But another option is you can use vitrified clays or you can use shales. Difference between calcined, vitrified, and shale. A calcined clay it holds, I think, 22 times its water. And then like a vitrified clay is more of like the clay that you build your infield mixes with. And then shale is almost like a crushed brick. It's like a warning track material. So it's not gonna, that picture where it looked really dry like this. Obviously I want to start with moisture management. And then after that, what I would do is I would nail drag it, honestly, which I'm getting to that slide up here. A lot of people are doing Dur-Edge. It's engineered soils. And I think every minor league stadium, they just signed a contract, every minor league station, baseball team is switching to Dur-Edge. And I think 85% of Major League Baseball teams have Dur-Edge. And what they do is they have a general basic clay for everyone. They have like a collegiate blend and a professional blend, but they will also come out and do a soil test and then say, hey, this is what your soil is, and how much silt is in it, how much sand, how much clay, and then they can tailor make an infield mix for you. Now that sounds expensive, but if you're getting rained out all the time and you're not playing, ball on your field, then they're not being used what they're supposed to. So people find out that every year they have to add a load of that cheap orange clay. And then once they get their field with Dur-Edge, it stays in place. It doesn't blow away. It's not getting kicked out. It's not getting edged. And they're playing ball a lot better because it's actually draining and it's doing what they're supposed to. So a lot of people are switching to Dur-Edge infields. It is an investment. But the people that have done it, they absolutely love it. So a lot of people are going that route. Here's a bunch of percentages. I don't expect anybody to really remember these, but again, it just kind of tells you what your sand, silt, clay, and for professional, intermediate, and recreational should be. And if anybody's interested in this, I can help them out with that, obviously, or put you in touch with a rep in your local area. So this is my favorite tool for managing a baseball field other than the roller. It's a nail drag. You can build one yourself for a little over $100 when I did it last about 5 years ago. I'm sure that price has gone up. I think I sold one to somebody a few weeks ago. It was probably $300-400, but we shipped it straight to them from the factory. And what it does is when you have the correct moisture, you can see how pretty those lines are from them dragging, and it's going to alleviate bad hops. Any high spots, it's going to knock them down, and it's going to fill in those low spots. So I'm a big fan of the nail drag. It's how you can get consistent hops on your baseball field. So then after you nail drag, you do a regular drag, and then I would like the roll, get it nice and compact, and then you add your conditioner on top. Conditioner, a lot of people think it's their field's playing bad, they need conditioner, when really they need to be doing the maintenance on the field to get it to play properly. The maintenance is just a top dressing. You really don't need more than a 1/4 inch of it on your field. Base paths should be a little bit firmer and a little drier. Guys are running on them, and so you want them firm. You don't want that clay kicking out. You want, when they go to round the base or when they go to slide, you want to make sure it stays there. So I know I'm going kind of fast. Any questions? No? Okay, keep going. Infield dragging techniques, go slow. It's definitely not a race. alternate patterns, stay away from the grass edge. The biggest thing I saw when I was helping maintain municipalities and schools were buildups around the edges and on the grass from people dragging through the grass or dragging through the base paths. So a lot of people like to do a circle and then they just keep working it out until they get the end. And that, that's what you see on a lot of the major ball fields. Another one you can do is where you just kind of just do straight lines back and forth and then do the other one. And so what I recommend with this is every time you start the drag, you're pulling material away. So you want to make sure you drag over that, but then you also want to make sure you pick up your drag somewhere else because you're dumping a lot of material. All the material you've dragged, you're going to do that. You're going to dump it somewhere else. So always start and stop your dragging in different spots. And stay about a foot or two away from the grass edges because you don't want that conditioner going into the grass because then you get bad lips, bad hops. They're safety hazards. And then you have more maintenance on your field. So if you have lips on you, a lot of the fields are designed to drain from the pitching mound back. They're kind of crowned that way. So if you have those lips on that back edge, a lot of times you're not going to drain. And a lot of times your players, they stand in the exact same spot, so they're low anyways. It's a lot of people don't have the budget to laser grade every single year. So the more you can drag your fields and keep up with the maintenance, even if it's just once a week, you're going to be a lot better off. Company out when I was in California, so once a year, we would till up the infield, laser grade it, roll it, compact it, and then get it going. So for high schools, I'd love to say, hey, do it once a year. Every other year is, probably more realistic. Yeah. So this is what a lot of fields look like. You don't want that. You don't want to break an ankle. Nobody wants that on their fields. So you can sod cut it out. You can edge it, but then you're taking off a lot of grass to where you're pretty much sod cutting it out. What you can try and do, you can try and blow it out with a backpack blower, a high pressure watered hose. Some people will go out there and manually do it with an iron rake that they sharpened on a grinder. So that's what that picture is. The most expensive option, but also the most efficient. And again, it costs money, but people will take a Coro machine and they will put one end on the infield dirt and the other one on the grass, and they'll get a nice smooth transition that way. But then you got to grow that grass back, which isn't as hard as it sounds. It's, go out there with a top dresser and a walk behind spreader and throw some fert. And depending on time of year, a month or two later, you get a nice even transition. So mound and plate repair. Best way to do it, sweep out the holes. Add a little water. Most people do like a watering can. And then you put in your new material. And then you tamp it. This guy here with the ruler, that's a slope gauge. So a mound is supposed to be 10 inches tall from the rubber. And it's supposed to slope inch per foot after that. So that's what this guy's trying to do here. So he's at 4 inches, so he's probably about 4 foot out from there. And he's just making sure it's sloped correctly. I talked to somebody the other day. He goes, we have the biggest home field disadvantage. He goes, I think my mound's at about 2 inches. So, he came and he bought some clays. So a lot of people, how can I get more out of my mound in my batter's boxes? Because first thing you do when you're a kid, at least when I was a kid, is you would go up there and you would see guys just start digging. They'd walk on the mound and they would just start going like this. Just no way to, there's really no point in that. It's kind of one of those habits. I remember when I was at Ohio State, we fixed the mound on senior night, and our star pitcher came up. It was after the game. Came up, hey, can I take a picture on the mound with my parents? And sure, no problem. So, we waited. And he didn't even have his cleats on him anymore. First thing he did, game's over. He just goes up there, just out of habit. He just starts kicking the mound. But how can you get more out of your mound? There's better quality clays out there, So if you use this black stick is a gumbo clay, and it's about 50% clay. So, and it comes pre-moistened right out of the bag. If he goes in there and kicks it, he's gonna have not a tough time getting his cleat in there, but he's not gonna be kicking it to where it's chunking out. So another good thing to do is if you have big holes and guys like to kick, they have blocks. Excavate out about 3 inches. You can put that block in and then just kind of grout over it with your bag of clay, and that's going to keep guys from digging. A lot of people like doing that in their batter's boxes, and then their high wear areas, they won't necessarily do the entire mound because it's expensive. But in front of the rubber, where those guys like to kick at, and in the landing area. This is showing me I'm at 38 minutes. How much time do I have? Getting close? I'll try and speed up a little bit. So I went over a lot of this. It shows I have 8 more slides. Anyways, here's somebody building a full tamp, full mound. Again, he's excavating out so he can do the blocks, tamp those in. Here's a picture of one of the robotic painters that I had mentioned. So your guy just goes in there. It's all, you enter everything in with the iPad, and then there's an auto steer. So he's literally in there just pushing the accelerator and then filling the paint bucket when it gets empty. So this is, and then again, I think the future is robotics, especially with all the labor shortages. So robotic mowers, and then there's local chapters, Sports Field Managers Association. There's one here in Central Florida. So if you just go to Google, type in Central Florida STMA. They're trying to rebrand to SFMA, which is Sports Field Managers Association. Go to Google, type in CSFMA, and become part of your local chapter. There's a lot of good resources on their website, and they have field days quarterly. So that's my presentation. I know I went kind of quick, cover a lot of materials. Again, this was my first time giving this presentation, so I'm sorry. I hope you guys got something out of it. Any questions I can answer for you guys? No?
Have you found that there's a big variance in fields that are irrigated with reclaimed?
The biggest thing with reclaimed water is there's higher salt content. So I would say almost on the lower end fields, I would do gypsum 1 to 2 times a year because that salt binds with the calcium in the gypsum, and then we usually saw enough effect from that to where it alleviated any issues with the grass. So, and that's where that soil test, at least once a year coming in is going to tell you, what your pH is, what the salinity is, and the best. And then some. So this time of year, we've had a lot of rain this winter with El Nino, but we haven't had any big gushing rains. Once we start getting those big, heavy summer rains that we get here in Florida, that's going to help flush some of your pH as well. So, I'm not trying to sell you guys, hey, come buy these products. Wait till after you get a good rain or two, and then see what your salinity is. But if you have reclaimed water and bad salts and a history, look at your soil test this year compared to last year, and then you'll be able to budget and figure out what you need to do. Any other questions? So I think I put my card in those books in the front page. Yeah, any other questions, feel free to reach out. If I can't help you out with any products or just information, use me as a resource. I'm based out of Tampa, but I sell Southwest Florida mainly. But I know people all over the state, and SiteOne, they know us for drainage and irrigation. Some know us for fertilizer and chemicals. But, we also do sports fields. We sell the robotics, we service them. We do netting, we do padding. You can get your bases and tamps from us, your hand tools. We really do, we're your one-stop shop. So use me as a resource. Reach out to me. Please let me know if I can help you guys. If you need a recommendation on contractors or products, and I will do my best to help you guys out. Thank you very much.